Okay, today we're going to start a new unit where we talk about what we call systems of equations. And systems of equations are really just two or more equations that we graph or look at the same time, and we want to see when, basically when they intersect each other. And so we're going to start by solving these systems of equations by using Desmos and graphing. So I have a system of equations right here. And that's just a fancy way to say that I have two equations and I want to know how those two equations interact. So the first thing I'm going to do with these equations is I'm going to put them into Desmos and I am going to graph them. So what you should do right now is pause and put these two equations into Desmos like I'm going to. So hopefully you put those two equations into Desmos and you get something that looks like mine. And you can see that these two lines are going to intersect each other, and the place where they intersect, there is a point. And if you press that point, it's going to give you the coordinates of that point. And so any point that's on a line has an x and a y. So in this case, the 3 is my x, the -4 is my y. And for any equation that we have, any point that's on that line, we should be able to plug the x in, and we should be able to plug the y in. And when so let's say if we plugged an x and a y in to this second equation here, and we simplified this side, whatever is on the left is going to be equal to the right. And so that would be a solution to that equation. When we have a system of equations, we're looking for the point that's in both lines. A point that's on both lines and a point that I can plug into both equations. And so in this case, that's going to be where they intersect. So these two equations intersect at this point, 3, -4, and that's what we would call a solution to our system of equations. A solution to a system of equations is always going to be a coordinate. So it's going to have an x and it's going to have a y. And if we want to solve a system of equations graphically, we can simply graph the lines and find out where they intersect. So let's take a minute to put these next two lines in. This is my next system. Again, a system is just a fancy way to say two or more lines. In this case, we're going to be talking about 2 lines. And so if we want to solve this system of equations here, we're going to put them into Desmos, and then we're going to see where they intersect. I highly recommend that you delete out any equations you already have in there. Start nice and fresh so you're only looking at the 2 lines you need to. So take a minute and put these 2 equations into Desmos, and then see where they intersect. So when you graph those 2 lines, you can see one's in green, one's in purple. You can see that we have a place where they intersect. They're intersecting in one place. That means they have that point in common. I'm allowed to plug that point into either of the equations. That means this is my solution. My system of equations crosses at -2, 1. And so that is the solution to this system of equations. So I didn't have to do really any solving. I just need to be able to graph these 2 lines. I need to be able to locate where they intersect. And then I need to know that that coordinate -2, 1, that is the solution to my system of equations. So what I want you to do is I want you to try this problem on your own. So a question box is going to pop up where you put your answer to this system of equations. Make sure you use Desmos. If you need help, please raise your hand and ask. So sometimes we might have a special solution to our system of equations. So far, the problems that we've done, there's been one place where those lines intersect, and we can document the point where they intersect, and that is our solution. But what happens if it doesn't work out where they cross just once? Let's see. Let's graph this system of equations by putting the equations into Desmos, those 2 right there, and then we'll talk about them. So if you were to graph these two lines, the system of equations, you can see that those two lines are not intersecting. And we can zoom out, or we can scroll really. And we can see that those two lines are never going to touch. That's because they're parallel. They're parallel lines. If we were to solve this to find the slope for these equations, they would have the same slope, which means they're never going to intersect. And so you might say, well, how do we find the point where they intersect and say there's a solution? Well, the fact of the matter is, when we have two lines that never intersect, we would say that there is no solution to this system of equations. There is no point that is on both of the lines, and therefore there's no solution to this system of equations. Let's look at this next pair. So pause and graph those two lines. Again, it's a good idea to always erase the work you've done and start fresh. So graph those two lines, and then we'll talk about the solution. So when you graph these two lines, when you graph this system of equations, you might be looking to see where both of the lines are. And the problem here is that when I graph the blue line and then I graph the green line, they're right on top of each other. In fact, they're the same exact line. Their equations look different, but they're actually the same line. And so they're not just intersecting in one place. They're definitely crossing each other because one is on top of the other. I can keep turning off the green line, and when I turn it back on, it's right on top of the blue one. That means these two lines are the same. These two lines are going to be crossing all the time because they're the same line. And so what we would say is this system of equations has infinite solutions. We could plug any xy, any point we could plug into either of these equations. We could find any point that's on either of these lines, and it's going to be on the other line because they are the same exact line. So we would say they have infinite solutions. So again, if two lines never cross, like this first example, if two lines never cross, they will have no solution. You can't have a solution to a system of equations unless the lines cross. If two lines are the same line, so we graph two equations that don't look the same, when we graph them, they're actually the same line. One is on top of the other. Then we would say that that system of equations has infinite solutions. They're not just one place where they cross. There's an infinite number of places where they cross. So we have three possibilities when we solve a system of equations. We have a possibility where we graph them, they intersect at one point, and then we document the point, and that's our solution. We have this scenario where these lines never cross, and so there's no solution. And then we have the scenario where the lines are the exact same line when we graph them, and so that means they have infinite solutions. So I want you to go ahead and answer this one right here. Put your answer in the question that pops up. If you need help, go ahead and ask. So to change things up a little bit here, I have 8 questions for you to answer at the end of this video. So I'm going to have a question box that pops up for each one of these, and I want you to put your answer in there. Answer your solution for this system of equations, so make sure you have Desmos out. If you need help while you're working, please do ask. But rather than put these into Edpuzzle, I want you to be able to go back and look at these problems if you want to refer to them later. So there's 4 questions here. I'll show you 4 more in a second. Make sure you put your answers into the appropriate boxes when asked. Take your time on this, and if you need help, ask.